Good day, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the speaker series this evening. Today, we're going to welcome Bobby Escamilla. Jose Bobby Escamilla is a graduate of UTRGV with a master's in biology. He previously worked for nearly 4 years with the USDA ARS in collaboration with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, focusing on invasive species management and developing methodologies for pest eradication, rearing, and distribution. As an educator of Mission CISD, he helped create and launch the Farmers Farm to School initiative, introducing students to sustainable ag. Currently, he teaches greenhouse production and management and advanced plant and soil science while co-sponsoring the Mission Seagulls Surf and Turf Club, which fosters agricultural education and mental well-being in a nurturing environment. Bobby, we welcome you to the talk.
Thank you, Mr. Cantu. It's good to be here and to speak to you all today. Talking about a topic that's pretty near and dear to my own heart. Today's topic is like the title describes, from concrete to crops, the rise of urban gardening and the RGB. I do have my email here so that I have a lot of information, and I want to provide an opportunity for y'all to maybe send me a message right now or in a little bit so that I can go ahead and send you the slide deck that I have today so that you don't have to be scrambling and trying to write all these notes down, because it is a lot of information to help you get started in urban gardening, especially depending on your situation as we go through it. So it can be a lot, it can be overwhelming. That way the email is the best way to reach out to me in case you have questions now or later. Maybe something comes up. So my email's there, and I also have it at the end in case you need it later on. But again, my name's Bobby Escamilla, or Mr. Escamilla. I work here at Mission CISD at Mission High School, alumni of Mission High School, and alumni of UTRGV. And urban gardening has been something I've been kind of dabbling on for a long time when I worked at the USDA. And a lot of it has been due to my background with the U is my background, of course, working with agriculture, excuse me. And so I love it. It's great. In my master's, when I did it, I really enjoyed working with farmers and other individuals. So I'm happy to work with you in any capacity. You can always contact me, and I'll be happy to lend you, some notes and side notes and maybe some help out in the field, depending on your situation. But let's dive in into like our talk for today, right? So like Mr. Ganthu mentioned, I work at Mission CISD, and I work in greenhouse. So greenhouse, inside the settings that we live in today, is pretty urban. Mission and the RGB has been growing drastically, and so the environment has changed. And so we try to teach my students from seed to harvest what exactly it takes in order to actually do this and do it efficiently, right? So we have a greenhouse here on campus. My kids every year have to start from scratch and go through the whole process of understanding the rigorous task and labor intensive task of starting a greenhouse. So what turns out to look like this, as you may see here, with soil and raised bed soil and other things that we'll talk about that soon, on what is maybe the best situation or medium for you. We'll talk about that, but they have to go through it, lift these big old bags and sometimes mounds from we get it from McAllen Recycling Center, the compost. And so we build these things, and eventually they start to slowly grow, right? But what first takes a long time tends to, my kids always drag on about how long it takes for a single seed to one even grow, with the proper care, to eventually boom into this beautiful green landscape that we have, right? And a lot of conditions change in our greenhouse as this happens, right? Urban gardening. So it's not like normally like in the grows, crops and stuff like that. It's a little bit different. And so we teach them everything we have to go through and pest management and all these things. And these are things I'm going to talk to you today about, so that if you want to start something like this, depending on your situation, whether it be you have land, you don't have land, you live in an apartment, your space is limited or your space is infinite, right? We can talk about what may be the best situation for you. Even if you don't have a balcony, you can still grow food in your house, right? I have a hydroponics station, and I teach kids how to do hydroponics in my class. So we'll talk about all these things and types of gardens, and what we need to maintain them, keep them, growing and flowing and producing to your heart's content. So, like I said, eventually this stuff gets to be extremely beautiful. These are things we have this year and last year in our garden. And the kids really took to, the trade pretty fast. And so hopefully something like this is what you get to see on a daily outside your apartment or house or complex or whatever your case may be. So we're going to get you from this, right, urban gardening, to a bunch of flowers, right? So that's the idea. Because the beauty of it is, well, as you can tell, really colorful, right? So a lot of these my kids grew themselves, actually all of these. And that orchid that we have, it was dying, but we brought it back to life. So even your orchids, I can help you bring those back to life, right? So I can teach you all these things and how to maintain this stuff. So my one thing I take part in our campus is actually working in a very diversified group. I don't work with just general population. I work with special education students as well. I feel all students, whether they be Gen Pop, special ed, or otherwise, and anything between, deserve the beauty of what you get out of gardening and farming and growing something from seed and seeing the value and hard work you get once you reach that harvest day, right? And so our students have really enjoyed it. We have a Titans program. We teach them life skills from 19 to 22. And they've really enjoyed being out there, and the mental clarity and things like that has been pretty therapeutic to them, learning these soft skills, right? So our students do a lot here in my campus, and we have male and female, no gender differences when it comes to our place. Everybody gets to use power tools and things like that. So it's pretty fun. It's pretty awesome. And the best thing about urban gardening is community, right? Be able to teach these students trade skills and things they can take and DIY later in life. So this is my fun little family. They're pretty cool, pretty great kids throughout the years. And we've been able to do some pretty cool stuff, even more advanced stuff like hydroponics. And I'll touch base on that too. We only utilize water when it comes to hydroponics and nutrient supplements, so no soil. And we've been growing some pretty great stuff: basil, tomatoes, lettuces, a lot of things kids eat. So, but let's dive into it for today. What exactly is urban gardening? So it refers to practice of growing plants in urban environments such as us, cities, landscapes, anything with, hard surface, streets, a lot of that stuff, right? And so where space is often limited, we tend to think that we can't garden, we can't grow, we can't produce food, we can't create green landscape. But that's not true. There's many different tools and techniques we have learned through the years in order to actually produce viable and a plethora of different vegetables and fruits and things we can enjoy, even flowers, right? So it can involve growing foods, herbs, flowers, and other plants in small areas like rooftops, like I mentioned, balconies. Maybe some of you have apartments and you don't exactly have land currently, especially if you're students. And so you can still grow a lot of fruits and vegetables and even herbs for teas and culinary, dishes and things like that. So anything can be used and repurposed to actually grow something. So we'll talk about that too. The whole goal of urban gardening is to make use of the available space, right? To promote a lot of this food production that we need desperately, especially nowadays with things being so expensive. It doesn't hurt to grow cilantro instead of buying it, organically for $1 or $2. You can grow it for much less than that, right? And keep that producing constantly. So it also helps improve air quality and enhance the aesthetic value of these urban landscapes rather than just have streets and cars and where you smell carbon monoxide and mufflers and engines and stuff like that, all that stuff going on. We can actually help purify the quality of air and actually produce some great greenscapes. So it's pretty cool. So today's outline, I kept it pretty simple. Just get you like a taste of what urban gardening is, but you can always contact me anytime and I can kind of take it a little bit further. because you are going to have questions. You're going to have more. You're going to dive into it, and you're going to really fall in love with it. To be honest, there's nobody I've met yet that's not loved it. Even if they said I kill everything I touch, right? It's okay. We're going to touch base on maybe why you do. Things do tend to pass away and die, and what we can do to remedy that or prevent that, right? So outline is why should we urban garden? The types of urban gardening we can do, depending on your situation. Site selection, because I have to say that's probably one of the more important things. Where you grow a garden, if you grow in an area that has no sunlight, sorry to say, nothing's going to grow, right? Unless you modify and produce and use, like, let's say artificial sun or sunlight, like grow lights, then you can definitely still grow even if you have no sun indoors or even on your patio. If you have light that's only there for 3 hours of the day, it doesn't matter. You can still grow food, and we'll show you how to do that, right? So, soil or no soil? That's the question, right? It's kind of like Shakespearean. Um, you can grow stuff in soil or not. That's what I teach my kids how to do. And they tend to say the soilless stuff, like hydroponics and aquaponics, is some of the more tastier stuff. They say they taste the purity in lettuce. I don't know what they mean by that, but I have to admit, the quality is pretty high. It does taste extremely good. A lot of times the fragrance is higher. So talk about nutrients and nutrient deficiency, how to identify that. Tools for the trade. If you're in an urban garden, you need some stuff, obviously, right off the bat to help you plants and to maintain your plants on the daily. The calendar here for South Texas, I'll show you that, what you can grow here in South Texas, and it's pretty foolproof. It's some of the best things to grow here. It's very hard to figure out sometimes what's best for our region, but I'm going to show you exactly what there is for our region that grows 10 out of 10 most of the time, unless, something happens, but we'll talk about that. Methods of planting, pests, useful vocabulary, and of course, resources and seeds and things you might want to use and check out and just fall down a rabbit hole, see what grows and what doesn't. I show my kids how to grow different things. They want to grow it. Let's try it and let's see what happens, right? It's always a learning experience. So something not working so well is always a great start to understanding maybe why, or maybe we should change it up a bit or find a better variety and things like that. All right. So why should we urban garden? I made this pretty give you the ability for y'all to look again at this information. So it's pretty information intense. Like I said, I have my email. I'll send it to you. It's also at the end of this presentation, so you can just send me an email, and I will send you this right away, so y'all can have all the notes. You don't have to scramble, like I said, and try to write everything down. All right. Like I said, urban gardening is my forte. I love it. It's great. It's done a lot for me here at campus and with my friends and my family as well. Fresh local food, one of the best things about it. Who doesn't like that? With prices nowadays and insecurity in food security, it's in grocery stores and chicken eggs and things like that. It's nice to be able to rely on yourself rather than the dependence of the market, right? Or commodities and what's available and what's not available. Tariffs and things like that are going to start hitting us. And so a lot of times my students today are kind of worried about that. So I teach them to be more dependent on their own skills and trade, so they don't have to worry so much. So, make sure they have a meal or the herbs and stuff they need for like sopa or food. So it's nice. It saves you a lot of money, especially grocery wise. Which you buy $1, $2 for a small piece of cilantro, a little bunch, you can grow for like 20, 30 cents, maybe even less than that, to be honest. It just takes time, but you can stagger and stuff, and you can have a good variety of food always available, right? And so, urban gardening is great for the environment, helps with emissions and things like that, absorbs carbon dioxide, help cools down cities. So I always recommend an urban garden for people because it does do a lot like that. New York and major cities have been using rooftop gardens and things like that to combat these problems that we have now with climate change and stuff, and also to just provide, like I said, less dependence on markets and stuff and other people on the system. One of my biggest things and my group is understanding the mental health aspect and how we build community. inside urban farming, working with each other, collaborating, social networking, things we maybe kind of stopped doing a little bit ever since COVID. We want to bring that back and just talk about healing process and doing some physical activity of some sort. Keep your idle hands busy. That's what we talk about with the kids, especially high school students. It reduces stress. They've told me that they have a newfound appreciation for farmers because they realize how hard it takes or how hard it is to grow food, right? And so a lot of times their stuff dies and they get frustrated. And I was like, how do you think of a farmer feels when their plants get wiped out by a flood or a pest or something or disease? And so they've learned a newfound appreciation for them. So it's pretty awesome. I love that for them. But like I said, community and youth groups, and we do a lot with community and neighborhoods and donating and food banks and things like that. So kids realize that their hard work has more value outside of school than just keeping it all in here, right? Like feeding people that need food and seeing that for themselves, it kind of rewires them to be less selfish. And they tend to see that the hard work they're putting in makes actual impact to the real world, and so they tend to change a lot of the time and become more caring and more understanding and patient with people. And so that's some stuff we've learned throughout the years in doing gardening, right? So using these spaces, transforming the spaces and all that, this education is just, it's crucial for us nowadays more than ever, right? So a lot of times when the people think about urban gardening, they think of like, why? Believe it or not, we're in a food desert, right? And if you don't know what a food desert is, the USDA classifies a food desert is where at least 500 people or 33% of the population live more than 1 mile in urban areas from a grocery store, right? Or 10 miles in the rural area. So some of you might say the grocery store is farther than 1 mile. Technically, you're in a food desert because it's not readily available to you. And maybe you don't even grow food yourself. So that leaves you in a situation where you have to drive to get just as simple necessities of life, right? So this applies to the UTRGB, if not the country, and how we see and classify food deserts and how we can make it less dependent on grocery stores, and you are able to grow your own food and take care of your own needs, right? Your necessary needs. The population is changing and things like that, and so we try to like figure out ways to combat these issues. And so I have the next thing is types of urban gardens y'all can possibly have. You've probably seen them and dabbled, and maybe they worked and didn't work. And I'll show you the pros and cons of different things. And even though things I might say are a con, you can always find a way of remedying that with just working with me or just going through the PowerPoint and just understanding how what you don't have or might be a con, we can figure out or there are ways of combating that, right? So even though you like, I don't want you thinking bogged down like, oh man, I can't do it because there's not enough light in my balcony to use a container bed or whatever it is. Well, you can get a light, right? And it's a simple fix. So the solutions to these cons, so don't be too bogged down on them. That's what I always tell my kids. There's always a solution to everything so that it can be successful. Just have to find it, right? And dive in, research, dig deeper. So container gardens are like this. Anything you have, if you have things that, I mean, I'm really believing not wasting a lot of these containers. I make, cottage cheese containers. My kids bring me milk cartons, things like that. Screw them into like the walls or the wood and like greenhouse. We grow succulents and we grow different things, and I'll show you some of the things we've grown. And it's pretty efficient. And the good thing about container gardening is you can move it, right? Freeze comes, because of course the RGB is very, what's the word, bipolar, I guess you want to say. It's freezing one day, the next day it's 100 degrees. It's raining like a torrential pour that's leaving us 22 inches of rain in some places. The next day it's fine, right? You never know with the RGB. It's a wild mistress, right? So we can use container gardens to help us with these things. So I have some pros and cons to container gardens. Space saving, it's portable, like I said, you can move it around. So you can put it on your balconies, you can put it anywhere. The control of soil, you know exactly what's in the soil and you can add and remove and you can monitor and check to see the nutrient quality, or if it needs more nutrients, you can test that easily. How much water it has, it's very easy to tell. You don't have to like digging in or sticking your hands into the soil too much. You can kind of just tell from the look and moisture levels. It's very versatile for herbs. Um, but with that, there's cons, of course, right? I can't exactly grow a bunch of corn in a container, right? Unfortunately, that's not feasible. So it can dry out quickly, limited space for roots. Carrots, it's pretty difficult to grow 10 carrots in a container. They're all going to fight for space unless you have a really big container. Nutrient depletion very quickly because it's just there. You're not using the runoff and stuff from all the rain and things like that, and the nutrients all around in the area. Temperature swings like that, right? The pots can get too hot if they're black, especially in the summertime. You might want to think about that too. I always tell people, think about the color of your pot. The color makes a big difference in how much energy is being absorbed or reflected. So if you're having a black pot that's pretty small, but have a big plant in it, it's going to get pretty toasty in there. It's going to dry up very quickly. And it might even affect the roots and go into shock and die. So that can also be a problem. So you just have to keep that in mind on how big your plant is and up potted. You know, if it's getting too big, put in a bigger pot. But the cost of these things can add up, the mixes and the soil and stuff like that. So you can also overwater pretty easily, and sometimes it won't dry out. It doesn't have anywhere to run off to, you know, the rest of the soil, like in the ground. It just, you know, gets moved. So things you have to consider in container gardening, but it's not impossible. If you have more space, you can do what's called raised beds, right? It's another option you've probably seen around. Our greenhouse has raised beds. And you can use wood, you can use cement, CMU blocks. There's a lot of things to consider when it comes to these. Good thing is that you have improved soil control. It's all there in its larger amounts, right? Drainage is much better because it can drain out into the ground, like it just you know, percolates and infiltrates and things like that. Soil can be warmer during the cooler months because of, you know, the earth warming up and going to the bottom, to the ground and stuff. Easy access, mobility. We use raised beds, especially with people in wheelchairs. You can still use them, just raise them up and put them on stilts or legs. So if that's your situation, you definitely can still do it. And if you're not great at bending down, you can raise them up off the ground and not have to about crouching down, be on your knees and things like that. So depending on your situation, that might be a best idea for you if you have the space. So it's very tidy, works well with drain systems and things like that. But there is cost to it. Wood, especially nowadays, wood can be a little bit expensive. I always recommend wood that's kind of like cedar wood or doesn't rot as quickly. Don't recommend treated wood because they have chemicals in it. Um, Heat pressure treated is okay, but I still stay away from it, to be honest. Um, and you know, the lifespan, the rot, and the things like that. So you have to take these in consideration because raised gardens do have a cost at start. Maybe not as much as like hydroponics, but there is still a cost in irrigation and drip irrigation and things like that, right? So we have to take that all into consideration. Um, so yeah, it's one of the things we can do, and also they can be kind of heavy. So moving these big O CMU blocks is pretty heavy. So once you put them there, it's great, but to move them from one location to the next and keep changing them if you want to change them can be kind of a pain, right? Depending on your situation. I would really want my grandmother, who's 85 years old, to do it, so it can be difficult for her to like move things around in that case. So if you want something more accessible and easy to use, so maybe like vertical garden would be better, like these. You can grow things anywhere. Use the space you have. If you have a fence, you can use a fence, right? It takes a little bit of creativity, it takes a bit of ingenuity and MacGyvering, but you can grow things on your fences. You know, soil pouches like these things, things you use for shoes. Put some soil in there. I know, water it not as aggressively, but you know, lightly mist it. You can do a lot of things in order to grow vertically as well. walls of houses, walls of your apartment complex. If your landlord lets you, you can get away with it. But there is ways in order to grow up. So, horizontal is not always the case. It can grow up, and you can utilize the space in that case. So, like I said, space efficiency, year-round production sometimes, depending on your situation. Water saving, very few pests because you're off the ground. I know bugs and diseases, and they love things on the ground. And once you raise it up, they have some place to travel. They can't fly, they can't crawl up as efficiently. So this helps you in the long run, right? So some things can really, really utilize the vertical garden idea. Leafy greens are great for these. Lettuces, herbs, things like that. Mints, rosemary. I've done all of these in my garden and greenhouse outside. But sometimes, depending on how you vertically grow indoors or outdoors, there's a high cost in equipment. If you need like lights or pumps to get the water to do drip irrigation on those things, you don't have to water consistently, constantly. Hydroponics, for instance, use a lot of pH and nutrient balances, moving up and down the system. Limitations, like I said, you can't use corn really to grow. You can't really grow corn on your fence post. So you have to think about and be creative on what you're going to grow above all things. So it's just, one of those things you got to worry about. Hydroponics, I have this here in the back of my room. I'll show you maybe at the end if you have questions. We do new technologies and things, aquaponics and hydroponics. In my class, we teach them hydroponics and how to grow in just water medium. And so we teach that in my class. What nutrients are required, depending on the produce that you have. This might be an option. Maybe your TikTok, maybe your Instagram has been showing these things. If you've been dabbling and possibly doing hydroponics and things, growing food in your table, your countertops or smaller versions of this, and growing little herbs and leafy greens and cilantro and basil to make pesto to add to your culinary needs and food. So it's an option to definitely do this. If you want to learn more about it than what I have here, definitely reach out to me and I'll talk more about it and kind of give you like a quick little rundown of how to do it. What are some systems I recommend? What some systems I might say stay away from? So there's different things on that. And there's like whole courses on this. So I might save you a headache and some money just by contacting me. And what you might need to start. So pros, it grows extremely fast. My broccoli here that you see in this picture, it really just, it takes about almost 60 some days. That's probably like 50 days or 40 days of growth. And it's ready to grow my broccoli head on all of those. And right now I'm having kind of set to almost grow. So pretty soon we'll have broccoli cheese in my class. So one of the good things about growing things in my class is you get to eat it too. So uses a lot less water. All the water is in there. It doesn't get ran off through, it's all eutrophication, fertilizers, a lot of stuff don't happen. It's all kept in this system, right? Never have to worry about runoff. Never have to worry about my plants going dry unless the pump doesn't work, right? Which we get to my cons. Great for saving space. Mine's are vertical. There's some that are horizontal, like the other one on the left. So I can grow things year round. Can grow strawberries year round, which we've done. Can grow lettuce, very easy to grow. Can grow broccoli. Can't grow corn. There are limitations, like I always say, corn and things like that. Can't grow squashes. Can grow, different things. And so it's pretty awesome. I can grow flowers and things like that. And I can grow this all in the comfort of my classroom. Never have to go outside, right? A lot of my kids like that idea. You don't have to go outside to grow food, I guess. I don't know. The more indoor people, but that's kind of where we're at right that, right? Cons is extremely expensive to start up. To this system that you have here, we fundraised. We did what we had to do to get this beautiful piece of equipment. Cost over $1,000. It is really good. It's a turnkey method. You don't have to do any drilling and making your own. You can DIY stuff. But we did this just to show kids commercial grade turnkey equipment, right? Just teach them as an option. So the one on the left, we built that, right? So there's different options wherever you want to go. So it requires a lot of monitoring pH, water quality, nutrients. Some days my pH runs high, some days it runs low, and we got to adjust those things with pH negative and positive. And so there's a little bit more science to it, and like chemistry and things like that. So we learn it, and it's very energy dependent because we have it indoors. You can have it outdoors, but it still requires a pump that has to move that water up and down or left and right. So it's a lot to it, and one of the good things is you don't worry too much about disease, but when disease gets there, it's a problem and it can spread very fast. So it's always being monitored, always checking on it. So it just requires some TLC, a lot of TLC, right? I don't exactly have insects in here to protect it from other insects or diseases and things like that. So we have to monitor what we're bringing into the classroom. Got to sanitize our feet, sanitize our hands before we touch it. So it's a very clean environment. So if that's not your thing and that seems like a headache, I would not recommend it. Don't save yourself a couple $1,000s, right? But another type of urban gardens, of course, is community gardening. It's all about, right? You can work with community. You can grow something. I'll grow peppers. You grow tomatoes, and we'll make salsa at the end, right? Have another friend that's growing onions. He's really good at growing onions, and so you start to build community when it comes to like these urban gardens. And so you work collectively. You worked in conjunction, and sometimes you can trade, like how it used to be, a commodity for a commodity, right? Helping you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You give me some peppers, and I'll give you some onions, and then we all eat from the same table, right? So we've donated things to our Titans program. People at our school have bought things from us and gone back into our program. So community is a great way to even make money, right? To sell to each other if you want to. So urban gardening can be a great little side gig if you really love it and really enjoy communicating with people and just, being a good steward to the land. So one of the main things is the next section is site selection. So I'm going to create my own garden. Let's get to it, right? Where am I going to grow, right? Site selection is beyond one of the more important things because if you grow in an area where the soil is terrible, you're not going to grow anything. If you have no sunlight, it's not going to grow. You have no lights, none of that. Unless you buy lights, unless you do something to fix that, but it comes at a higher cost, right? So sunlight, most vegetables and herbs need 6 to 8 hours. Some even need more than that. So check and see what kind of herbs you're growing or plants. South-facing spots usually run the most sunlight. Tip for you guys, in case you want to know. Watch for shade from trees and fences throughout the day. Just because it seems like it has sunlight at one part of the day doesn't mean an overcast or overshadow doesn't happen. So you have to keep track of that before you even think about planting in certain locations. Water access, can't grow anything you have no water, right? Doesn't matter how much you put into it, how much you till, how much you do anything. If there's no water, you're not going to grow anything, right? So avoid low areas where it can also pool, and you can have a big problem when it comes to flooding, where everything gets to rot, right? You have root rot and things. Airflow, if you have it in a very small area and there's no airflow, fungus and disease can pop up because of the humid air that's stagnant in that area. And so that becomes a big problem. And opposite from that, if you're in an area that's very open, you're going to have problems with wind. And your little baby branches and twigs and stems are going to snap, right? So you have to find somewhere that's not going to be having those kinds of issues or problems, especially in urban gardens, depending on where you live and how the wind passes through buildings and things like that, right? So soil quality, check how that works. Is it well-drained soil? Is it clayish? Is it sandy? And so there's different ways. And I have a worksheet or, a reference guide to help you with figuring out what kind of soil you have, right? I can go into that for a long time, but if you have questions, definitely reach out to me and I'll help you out. But I have a nice little reference guide for you guys. Size, accessibility, and proximity pollution is around cars and car exhausts, right? If your garden is there and it's always facing the cars in the parking lot and their cars are pointed the other way and the exhausts are all pushing towards your garden box, that can cause problems and probably kill your plants. all that carbon monoxide just being pushed to you. So some things to think about. Never really thought about it, but it is kind of how it can happen, right? So why start small? I don't want you all to be overwhelmed. You should not start, you know, Bobby said, you get like a sudden burst of energy or inspiration. You all want to go buy a 5 or 10 acre farm. All power to you, but if you don't know what you're doing, starting small, that can be extremely difficult to do, right? So everything I'm showing you is more smaller scale. If you want to start something big, that's a conversation we all can have another day, right? You reach out to me, I'll help you out. But this is more small scale farming, small scale something just to help you guys out. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. When you feel overwhelmed, you give up, right? Like even my students do that. You grow something, it dies, and you're overwhelmed. Like, well, how did it die? You start freaking out. You start saying things like, I don't have a green thumb. Everything I touch dies. It's probably something you've told yourself at one point, but don't feel overwhelmed. Start small and keep trying and kind of like assessing, reflecting, and thinking, well, why did it die, right? So small things are easier to manage, lower cost. Container is great. I can buy a few of those for $20, $30 with some soil. Less than $100, I can get farming or growing food rather than buying hundreds of thousands of acres and trying my luck there and hoping I make enough product to sell or even find a seller, right? Don't do that yet. Start small. So lets you learn and you can experiment and then you scale up. You start having fun. You start finding a groove. You start finding a morale. You start building like, oh man, I'm doing this. It's great. Like things are growing. I'm selling it. Let's scale up. Let's do this, right? Start following that high and you start really getting into it and diving deeper and learning more about seeds. And then you just end up getting like me, lost in it at this point. There's no turning back. So start small, pick a few crops, very easy stuff. Lettuce, radishes, herbs, tomatoes, peppers are great beginner ones. My high recommendation, right? And I'll show you when to grow them in a little bit with our planting schedule. So I'm not leaving you with nothing to start with, right? Containers, buckets, grow bags, anything you got, save little containers from HEB, from your food products, wash them out, and then make holes so that's drainage. Buy some potting soil and get to growing, right? So we'll work on that. That might be your homework for today to actually think about doing that and just starting somewhere, right? Quality of mix is extremely important. Do not cheap out on starting mix, seed mix, or anything like that. Sometimes the cheaper stuff, nothing grows, right? Quality is not something you should cheap out on, especially with starting your seed. That's what everybody's always told me, and I've kind of stood by it too. Because cheap mix that doesn't have the things you need, seed starting mix, nothing grows, and then you get frustrated, and then you're just kind of giving up at that point, right? So label everything, trying new crops, label it. My students label nothing, and they kind of have to guess. I think that's a tomato. And I'm like, okay, that's smart. It's tomato, but which variety of tomato? There's like hundreds of varieties of tomato, right? And so they kind of get frustrated because they realize labeling is a good idea. Having a plan and writing it down helps out. Having a journal, it helps even better. So log all that stuff. Follow your journey, and you'll end up, enjoying it at the end. So I'll go through this really fast. Soilless versus soilless. Soil versus soilless gardening. Hydroponics, aquaponics, cococore, the disadvantages, advantages. Grows faster, right, in hydroponics. Like I said, startup is very high, but it's great for modern day technology. And we have limited space. We don't have anything for you. You can grow things inside. I don't have a balcony. I can't put things outside. My HOA or my landlord doesn't allow that. You can grow it inside your own apartment. It is going to come at a cost though, right? So I recommend buying little small hydroponic little things. You can do it there, or buying soil in a pot inside your house and have a huge, growing living room of just random things, right? So things to consider, but soil, it's always natural, mimics the ecosystems of plants and how they, evolved. So it's low cost. Microbiology of soil is great. nutrient buffers, things like that, sustainable potential, sustainably it can be good, right? You don't have to worry about other things and inputs and electricity and things like that. Pest pressure, that's the one the big thing. You have insects, you have disease, you have vectors, you have all these things that can attack your plants. But to combat that, you can do companion planting. You can do things that grow and repel plants. That's something we can talk about, you and I, if you want to know more about that, and more of an organic method, right? So just things to consider. My students have to go through all of it. They have to go through the whole hard labor, as you can tell, stringing, trellising, preparing the soil, adding cow manure. That's what they're adding there for high nitrogen fertilizer, more organic. Well, in hydroponics, you just put it together and thumbs up, we're done, right? Just fill it up with water and let it go. I'm just joking, it's a little more than that, but it's not as labor intensive as working outdoors. So my kids like both, and they've learned to appreciate both or all techniques. So you might too. Let's talk a little bit about nutrients, nutrient 101. Now, when you buy nutrients, you might want to know this, is that nutrients tend to have this little number, 3-number system. It's called NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, right? And having them in different ratios depending on what you're going to grow. Certain things need more nitrogen, more phosphorus, more potassium. Different stages of life, just like us as toddlers, we eat certain things when we're first born, then as a toddler and the young youth, and then adults, and then as we age, right? We have different things we should be eating, not always the case, but to help us grow to our full, potential and help us grow healthy and things like that. Plants are no different. Different stages of their lives, they require more things. First, they need a lot of nitrogen. Growing a lot of leafy green, a lot of mass and things like that, it really helps. If your lawn is not very green, I might recommend throwing some nitrogen or some sort of fertilizer that has a lot of nitrogen to get them growing, turning green again. And maybe like compost and stuff, right? So phosphorus, what it's really used for is supports root development, flower, and fruit production. I always recommend this at the beginning, a seed starting, and also at the end, right? You want a strong root system to hold and anchor your plants, because once you start producing nitrogen and you have that nitrogen, you grow a lot of leaves, it has a lot of weight. So need something strong to anchor. If your root system is not strong enough, that guy during a windy day is gonna come and fall down, right? So you need to make sure you have the essentials to acquire nutrients from a large area, also to a very vast root system, and also to basically grow that fruit and at the very end. So potassium was overall health, disease resistance, tolerance, things like that. It's like the immune system. That's what I always tell you. It's like an immune system. You need to give it that potassium, that banana, right? Some of my kids make banana fertilizer, and they throw it at their plants. So have it there. What it means gives you example. 10, 10, 10 really means 10% of it is nitrogen, 10% of it is phosphorus, and 10 is potassium by weight. The remaining percentages is really just fillers of like gypsum, vermiculite, or whatever they use to hold it all together and help with the dilution process, right? And so I have it here, nutrients, some of these really great little graph, what it does, and how these micronutrients, secondary nutrients help. If you see yellowing of leaves, you might need some more iron, right? And some magnesium and zinc or boron with these other things. So things to consider, things like a nice little cheat sheet to help you guys out. I have another one. So here I have something for you all. And it's kind of going to help you a lot when it comes to like understanding deficiencies. How do I know if I have not enough, right? So the thing my kids say, and I put on the very top is, why does this look weird, right? Why isn't it green? Like, sir, why is it brown, right? So my kids will always say things like that, like, sir, is it burns? Is it dying, or what's going on? But always it's, why does it look weird? I don't know why. But these are some of the things and reasons why it might change color. I have it here. This is courtesy of the UTRGV Growers Guide, and I have provided this for you. It's a beautiful guide, and I'll show you the very end to help you guys out and understand how to identify these deficiencies, right? Here's a picture. We'll go through real fast, but it's yellowing of leaves, right? So if you follow what's going on with all these different types of deficiencies, if you isolate which one it is, it's actually nitrogen. So according to nitrogen, yellowing and spreading out the leaves around the leaf center, it's exactly what's happening to this. You can kind of determine you need more nitrogen, right? Cow manure or synthetic fertilizer, whatever your preference is, right? So blood meal is another option. So I'm not gonna go through all of this in depth, but you definitely want to check out these tools for the trade. If you're gonna start your urban garden, you need tools, right, to help you start off. Containers, I'm gonna mention that. You can do containers, you can do that. Beds, boxes, shovels, or hand trowels, right? To transplant things like that. Gardening gloves, they're great if you don't want to have like me, who has a bunch of dirt under his fingernails. If you're squeamish about touching cow manure or whatever the case may be, or fertilizer, you're afraid of touching it to get some sort of reaction. Definitely gardening gloves do help. Watering cans, I do this with my daughter. She goes out there and waters it all the time. Pruners, scissors, fertilizers, either organic or conventional. It's entirely your process. That's a conversation we have for another day. What your preference is, based on your belief in taking care of the environment and climate change. We use a lot of organic in my garden. Garden forks or broad forks to help with aeration, plant supports, trellises, cages, composting. You want to do that. Pest controls, neem oil for organic methods to get rid of insects, insecticidal soap, or just straight up, things kill everything, which I don't recommend because you're going to be touching and eating these things. Don't use poisons. They're not safe. Measuring spoons and soil moisture to understand how much moisture is in their soil, right? So all these things are great. They help you. They're there for you to review and to come back to in case you're wondering, how do I start and what do I use, right? What did Bobby tell me to help me get started? So one of the main things do recommend is using and figuring out your watering system. Drip is a great thing, save water, conservation, but there is some caveats. You have to make sure that it doesn't poke a hole into it. There's some maintenance behind it. It's very water efficient though. Healthier plants happen because it hits the root column, focuses on the drip, right? Goes straight into the root system. It's not, going off and flooding something else, watering your weeds or grass that you don't want to grow. It's very centralized. You can use things like this, black plastic and things like that to help maintain it a little better to prevent evaporation. So time saving, customizable. You can put a timer on it. You don't have to be out there with the mangetta all day, like my grandma used to do. You really can put a timer on it and just let it water when it needs to be watered. Just don't overwater, of course. Let it dry out and then water again. So things to consider. So you can use mulch. Mulch is great with more, moisture retention, things like that. We use this in my class a lot. So helps with temperature regulation. It helps during the winter time, winter months. So the initial cost it can take time. You have to buy the stuff unless you make it yourself. Mulch can suffocate plants. You have to be careful. Don't over mulch. I have here, you put about 2 to 3 inches of mulch to basically cover that area and give it a nice little blanket, right? It adds nutrients back into the ground and things like that. Prevents soil erosion. Water, when you water it, it's not just gonna fall off and just go everywhere. It's gonna help centralize the water, prevent that erosion and that retention of the moisture. So it's really great. It does help a lot. So I highly recommend. Just don't over mulch. Great. But you're wondering what you could possibly plant here, right? So let's get to it. Our cool season is cool, warm season are a little bit different than everywhere else. You might not want to follow some of the things that might have more up north, like Austin, San Antonio, Houston areas. So we have this here from the UTRGV Planter's Guide. This is for you guys for free. Recommend to plant these things during these months. It's color coded. The cool months are in the greenish. The warm months are kind of like that orangey, and the hot months, which we don't recommend growing much of anything except cover crops, maybe. That's during actual ground stuff. You can plant that too. So this is more like if you're doing a raised bed or a garden bed, you can still do this stuff in containers. We can't do all of it, of course. So just some things to consider. I have it here for you guys so you all can check it out. It's for your information. So right now we're in what? April? Okra, eggplant, pepper, squash, roselle, for roselle tea and things like that. You can grow that here. Corn and sweet potatoes. You can plant those as of April, right? May, it's a little bit less because it starts getting warmer. So if you want to go next season, get prepared. August, get some watermelon in the ground, cucumber, pepper, squash, tomato, beans, and okra, right? Okra is a good little thing to have. So I have a cool season here for you guys: cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. So it's a lot of things you can grow for you to have some fun with, right? So I have it here even further, more in depth, what months that pertain to your crop seasons: winter, warm, cool, or transition months. You can grow some stuff during transition months, depending, right? It's RGB's crazy mistress. Never know what's gonna happen. If you want to know about the hardiness zone of us to buy certain plants, 10A is Southern Hidalgo, right? Cameron Willacy, 9B is Star in Northern Hidalgo. And I provided this for you also Cameron County as well, 10B. So you check out your plant hardiness and what plants might work best in this area, or just try everything. Try everything. It works out in the end. So densities, have them here for you. How far to plant something is probably what you've been wondering. If you are doing raised boxes and not containers, how close do you have to be together? Do I do directly seeds? Do I do transplants and start them in my house or my room or wherever? Or what can I do? So here's some things you can do directly in the ground. You can try and start them inside and take them outside, right? You got to get them hardy though. Before you put them straight outside, you want to give them about a week or so. Every 2 days, we put them outside for maybe 3 hours to get used to the intensity of sun. And then bring it back in. For 2 days, we do that, 3 to 4 hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours, and then we raise it the next third day. We do it 4 to 6 hours for 2 days at max, and then bring them in. And then the last few days, we are there the whole time or partially shaded, and then they're transitioned depending on the time. So you do have to harden your plants if they are growing and started inside, or else they're just gonna get shocked and transplant shock and die, right? So pests, boom. If you're ever wondering if you see a pest or you're like, is this good bug or a bad bug? Like my daughter asked me, I say, baby girl, that's a bad bug, kill that, right? So she knows how to identify. There's some beneficials and some common pests, aphids, harlequin beetles, cucumber beetles, and these things, if they're not taken care of, will ravage your plants and kill them very quickly, right? So think about some way to take care of them, insecticidal soap or whatever, neem oil, and it will definitely help you guys out in the long run. Okay. So this little thing is good for you. You want to promote also some of the beneficials. There's stuff out there you can grow to promote them to come in to, protect your plants. So I have some useful vocabulary in case you're ever wondering when people talk about heirlooms, people talk about GMO, whether you're for or against, that's entirely up to you. It's a whole other discussion, and my kids have a debate on it every year. Organic, so heirlooms, usually fruits and vegetables passed down through generations, often family, community, or whatever. Very hardy, seeds. GMO, genetically modified, DNA has actually been changed in the lab, and they own the rights to that seed. So you have to buy the seed every season from them. You cannot keep it. You have to buy it, right? It's where I'm not really cool with that. Having to keep buying, or somebody owns a seed and I can't use it again, right? It's not very good and sustainable wise. But they do have some benefits to it. Organic, use no synthetic fertilizers or chemicals or herbicides, all those things. And these three things are really good for you all. As you realize, I did it twice, but biennials, perennials, and annuals. Perennials means that they grow more than one single season. That's fruits and vegetables, nuts, berries, asparagus, right? Annuals, their entire life cycle goes through one season, which is fall, summer, winter, or what have you, cool season, warm season. And biennials means that it grows for two seasons, right? Take up 2 years to complete the life cycle. So that might help you out with some of the jargon for you guys. I do have these resources, so definitely email me, and I'll show you my email in a little bit. I'm about done. So y'all can email me, and these are some great seed companies that you can click the link and take you straight over there. Find your preference of seeds, what you want to grow. One recommendation: grow what you're gonna eat. Do not grow just for fun. Yeah, grow for fun, but if you're not gonna eat it, it just goes to waste. Maybe if you give it to somebody, it's great, but just make sure you grow something that's going to be utilized in some way and not just rots, right? To use resources just to have it rot. So if you're doing it for learning, great. That's great, but definitely want to grow stuff you're going to eat. Don't grow broccoli if you hate broccoli. It looks great, it looks fun. Cauliflower, purple cauliflower, green cauliflower, looks beautiful, but if you hate cauliflower, it kind of just goes to waste, right? So check out these seed companies. I highly recommend them. I have something special for you all. This issue by UTRGV is a planting guide where I got some of the information that to show you all. And so when you follow this, it gives you everything you need to start. So you're welcome, right? Gives you some information, soil. If you want to know more about soil, composting, if you want to start composting and dive into these things, soil management, how to check your soil. This planting guide is a great resource that UCRGB and Office of Sustainability created. It's their first issue. And so you guys get to check this out. The link's there for you all. It's free. If you want a hard copy, you can go to the Hub of Prosperity in Edinburgh. It's the UTRGB farm that they have behind one of the churches on Monmouth. And check them out. And so you can buy a hard copy for about $10, right? But a lot of stuff I covered is here, and the different seasons, and even edible natives that you might have at your house. I think that's pretty awesome. I love natives. And so y'all can check them out. Nopales are there, Texas ebonies, mesquite. You can turn the pods into mesquite cookies or flour to make mesquite cookies. Chile piquin, right? It's one of the things that my grandparents love. So that's for you all. It even tells about starting seeds indoors. When I talked a little bit about it, this can help you and guide you. So from start to harvest, the more outdoors or indoors and even drip irrigation, how to set it up is all here at your fingertips for you guys, right? So I hope that helps. I hope you enjoy your venture in urban gardening. If you take this back with you and dabble in it, and it'll help you guys out. I'm so happy. But if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me, email me. If you email me now, and just say like, hi, I'm looking to get the PowerPoint. I will send it to you guys today, and you all will have that information at your fingertips. And so you can click the links, refer back to it, or anything you want. It's totally free to you all, and I just hope it helps in your venture to urban farming, right? So if you all have any questions, I guess at this moment, it's right at 7 o'clock. Perfect. I'll open up the floor to y'all's questions if you do have questions. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Bobby.
You're welcome.
So we do have some questions.
Okay.
From our live chat. We've gathered a few. Let's see how many we can go through.
Okay.
But there were a lot of questions, and everyone's saying thank you so much for the tips and everything. So thank you.
No worries. If y'all have any other questions, like even after this, definitely email me and I'll help you guys out.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your email. And yes, we sometimes we're leading these speaker series, and sometimes they ask us like, hey, can we, and they want to get to the speaker. So thank you for sharing it.
Yes, definitely.
So I wanted to start with this question. What inspired you to begin urban gardening here in the RGV?
So I honestly fell into it. When I was doing my master's, I was doing more invasive species and monitoring water, water efficiency in the RGV. And my cohort, right, or my other fellow lab mates, they were doing more agricultural based things, and I kind of just fell into it. And so I remember helping Savannah, even Mr. Gantu, and with his urban forestry and and trees and things like that, and getting to communicate with farmers, I started to really enjoy the communication between farmers and realizing they have a very hard task ahead of them, and farming is becoming more difficult and very, the age of farming is, or most farmers like over 60 years of age. And so people are selling their farms, moving towards the city. And so I realized that that's a problem. And I just enjoyed the conversations in the community and the positivity off of them. I fed off of them. And I just wanted to help them, right? So I realized they had a lot of problems. And I was like, wow, like I'm a problem solver by trade. I love solving complex situations and problems, and I want to do something because these people, I I know them. I know farmers. I know met them. I've seen the struggles, and I want to help them. And so I want to help them, and I want to help feed people because I've seen people starving. And so it's not my first choice, but I fell into it, and I haven't looked back. And I love educating young kids on it because they definitely are the future of agriculture and they just don't know it yet. But it's becoming a bigger and bigger necessity to learn how to grow food. So we start off as just helping a friend out, turned out to be, my livelihood. So
Okay, that's a good start. Good inspiration. So I wanted to kind of dive into this question. I know you mentioned throughout a little bit, but what are the startup costs for a small greenhouse for a family? A typical family here from the RGV. I think you're muted.
sorry. That's a good question. So greenhouse, it just really depends on the size that you want. You can DIY these. There's a lot of plans out there to DIY and create your own greenhouse. The greenhouse I have currently is about the size of my room. I'm not really sure how much it is, but it can run from like $10,000 depending to maybe even more. But you can actually get a hoop house, which is an enclosure, right? And to grow your own produce, and you can basically soup up a hoop house slowly, but you can get one for almost free with like the NRCS and with various grants. So depending on your situation, and that's something that maybe you can talk with me about, or if you have a question, we can reach out to the USDA and NRCS, at least until funding kind of dries out. We don't know with that, but greenhouse might be anywhere from, depending on the size, like I said, you do for like 3,000 DIY maybe to maybe 10,000 with like a system that cools it down, and you were able to pick up the sides and allows aeration for like fans and things like that. So it really just depends what scale you're looking to do. If you want to do it like small scale in the backyard, I might recommend you buying a small glass greenhouse or some sort of plastic one. You can get them at Costco. You can get those. They're more designed for up north and cold weather, but you can makeshift them if you look into it and research it to fit our landscape, right? Because it gets hot very fast, so you got to pull that air out. So you have to figure out a way to get in exhaust fans and maybe a shade cloth and things like that. So maybe a couple thousand, $1,000, maybe very small, maybe less than that. Check out Costco, maybe some of those big chains. Um, but if you want it like decently done, it's gonna run at least maybe like about 1,000, couple thousand, to do that for a decent size, depending how big you want it, like I said. But it does help out. I can get you my specs if you message me. I can check out my specs. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I don't want to give you false information, but the specs of my greenhouse, and I'll definitely send out uh, more pictures and things like that. So I can go really fast to my greenhouse I have here, so y'all can see how it looks. So this is my greenhouse, right? Opens up to the side, allows aeration and pull everything out. This, because of the caliche, because of the drip irrigation system, because the bricks ran almost during peak COVID time when everything is expensive. It was about 8,000. because everything, like I said, was extremely expensive, and like getting people to build it was pretty hard. But this thing probably should only cost, like, to be honest, 3 or 4 thousand for the size of it. So you might want to look into somewhere around that, but it would be much cheaper if you build it yourself, with the steel rods and things like that. So, but yeah.
And just wanna, not so that everyone gets scared. Uh, the question was greenhouse, so that's why you presented a bunch of examples that are way more cost
Yeah.
accessible. So,
Yeah. So greenhouse is a little expensive to build, but once you have it, it's a pretty permanent structure. So it can help you in long season. This greenhouse is designed to hold, raised beds. You can not have the caliche, it saves you money, and just have ground, which is more of a hoop house, right? It's pretty cheap, much cheaper. And like I said, with the NRCS and grants of the USDA, you can even almost get it for free, depending on the grants. So that's something you want to dive into. I can help you out with writing a grant or something, give you some tips, so you don't even have to pay anything. So it's really up to what you want to put into it, right? But yeah.
thank you for mentioning that, because one of the questions I had here right after this one was, how did you go about funding this? Because you mentioned throughout, you said that you did
Yeah.
fundraisers, and I'm glad you mentioned these grants opportunities. So,
Yeah, so
um,
to raise
yeah.
funds, you might want to look at grants. Sometimes you have to put in your own buck to get started. Growing microgreens, something small. Like I said, start small. Once you start getting the hang of it, generating some sort of income, look online to what you can sell it for at farmers markets are welcome to invite you at McAllen, Edinburgh, even I think even Mission might have a farmers market soon. So you can look at these ways of making some money and eventually purchasing those things that are a little bit more expensive, if not a grant.
So we even had someone mention that they received a grant and they were asking kind of what plans they can get started. So hopefully they got tips here
Sure.
to get started with their grant that they received. So that's good. Um, I wanted to talk about about the greenhouse. Someone asked, how many different species of plants can you have in one greenhouse? I know
Uh,
it could depend on the size, but like how
yeah.
many do you have in yours?
Let's think about it. Species wise, I have marigolds, I have zinnias, I have cucumbers, I have squashes, I have sunflowers. That's the big one right there in front of you. I have morning glories, that trellis, like the one you see in this picture that's going up. And those can literally take over my greenhouse. So there's like a jungle, to be honest. It looks really cool during the springtime or when we have a lot of morning glories and trellising. It's like 7. I have beans, I have lettuce, I have Brussels sprouts, really. So a lot of it, the species just depends on companion planting. That's when you plant a plant that works well together with deterring insects or doesn't prevent it from, getting enough nutrients. They're very nutrient hungry. You don't put, like, for instance, a sunflower next to your brassicas or other things, because a sunflower is allelopathic, releases chemicals to inhibit growth. It doesn't inhibit really other sunflowers, but it'll inhibit, like, other lettuces and things trying to grow around it. So that's where you have to kind of figure out. It's not really so much like, yes, space, but my greenhouse and these kids, we've been able to grow. You can't see it now, but where you can't even see the soil because there's so many things growing in unison. And once you learn the companion planting, you can grow, 20, 30 varieties of things and still have space. It's just nutrients and maybe a problem or not enough water. And so it's things like that you have to worry about. So some things play nice with others and some don't. So that's where you would have to look more on companion planting and see which ones will work well together. And when they do, I can have the pink zinnia, I can have a green zinnia, I can have a cotton candy zinnia, a candy cane zinnia, and all the zinnias love hanging out next to each other. So I can have one species or one type, but hundreds of varieties all growing together in unison. So it just depends on that too. Yeah.
That's cool. So you mentioned it throughout, but there was a lot of people asking related question on what kind of integrated management strategies you take into place and what everyday item can be used as an effective pesticide.
Sure. My kids, to be honest, we have Nerf guns, like Nerf gun with soap water, insecticidal soap and water. And we go out there like in the mornings if we see something like aphids or some sort of like beetle or a sucking beetle or something like that. They go out in the early mornings when they're usually out like, feeding. And we just start shooting them with water, insecticidal soap inside water guns or spray bottles, and they have a blast doing it. We use neem oil also as a deterrent. That's one of the more widely used organic ways. We have different types of crops, or not crops, but plants like marigolds and dill and cilantro and mint and things that have been known to deter certain insects from coming around, like whiteflies. They might be a problem, or even unleashing hordes of ladybugs in the early morning when it's cool, so they don't fly away, to just murder and ravage a bunch of aphids that are attacking our plants. So we have biocontrol as different things that we encourage to come to our garden with these specific plants or flowers to invite them to come bring the beneficials. If that doesn't work, or there seems to be like an overabundance of these things, like for some reason an infestation just breaks out, which happened one time with cucumber beetle. We go in there with insecticidal soap, neem oil, or our super soakers with Dawn soap sometimes, and just wash it off as soon as they die, and just go to town, right? So I can say my integrated pest management system is one, my students hunting. Two is the different types of flowers and plants we use in every single garden box. Everyone has a marigold to help. Everyone has a dill to help. And so it brings in beneficial insects to help us as a second wave of attack when we're not around. But those are some of the things we utilize in our garden. So it's more organic. We don't spray herbicides or pesticides or fungicides. Maybe copper sulfate to help with funguses at one point, every so often if we really need it. But neem oil kind of helps a lot with like mildew, powdery mildew, and things like that. You might have fungus and things. Yeah. So it's kind of what we use.
Love the strategy.
Yeah. Super soakers help.
So there was a few that asked this question, so I kind of selected one about using eggshells. So is it true that eggshell water or banana peel water helps plants thrive? So there was some
Yes.
question.
They actually do. If you leave, believe it's a banana inside water like overnight, it will dilute inside the water and it's like an energy boost. I think this guide that we have here actually makes a mention of that. Let me look through it really fast. So I want to make sure that's in the guide so y'all can check it out and have that as a great reference for just things you can use. But eggshells do. When I use eggshells, I actually get my mortar and pedestal and I let the eggshells kind of dry. I don't use wet eggshells that I just used, right? Because it's too much moisture and goo, from the yolk and all that. So I let it dry in a paper towel for a while, or paper towels. And then I put it inside my mortar and pedestal and I crush it and grind it up. And then when I crush and grind it up pretty finely, then I'll add it to my garden. the reason why you want to add things like calcium and bone meal and things like that is because you want to prevent like things such as blossom end rot, which is when your tomato, the very end where the flower was, it starts to rot, right? So calcium and phosphorus and things like that do help a lot, and potassium, they help a lot preventing that from happening. So, and even the nutrient deficiencies. So, but yeah, they can help a lot in assisting you all. But I'm trying to see if I can find it real fast. But any other questions? I'll look at this right now. But questions?
I have just one more, and that was kind of like the closing for this talk.
Okay.
So what future plans do you have with your kids, with your project? And what goal do you have for 2025 with your kids?
So my kids for next year are going to be utilizing our farm that we have here at Mission CISD. During COVID, we actually purchased a property, a farm from an old citrus grove, and they heavily invested it, or I just convinced them somehow to invest in this, be proactive and invest in it, so that we can grow produce and teach them how to grow in-ground farming. So we finally got it going. We have portables out there. We have facility, a lab, and restrooms. It looks pretty awesome. And it's about, I want to say, three acres to start, with citrus groves, some citrus groves preserved. So we're gonna go out there, start doing in-ground farming, do it well enough to where we can give it back to our CMP program for our child nutrition program, and send that food we're growing, our students are growing, back to our students, like elementaries, junior highs, and high schools, where they can eat from the hard labor of our older students, our high school students. And we want to invite eventually our junior highs and elementaries to come out there and utilize our farm as a learning lab to do curriculum, right? So learning about pests and management and the reproductive cycle of flowers and plants and things like that. So that's what we're going to incorporate next year. And me and my students are also going to hit a little bit harder on our hydroponics and build our farmers market. We have here at my high school a lot of support. We have a lot of support from our principals and our admins to grow a farmers market. We have had a soft opening. It's been very successful. And so that money goes back into our club, and we just buy more soil and more garden boxes, and our kids are growing. The amount of kids we're growing, and it's been really good. So we'll have our in-ground farm, go out there, do our business, and we have the farm here, or gardens, with the greenhouse and the garden at our campus. And every elementary in our district has a garden box. So, and one elementary actually has chickens. So that's pretty cool. So next year we might even have chickens and teach them how to raise chickens, because everybody knows that eggs right now are pretty expensive. So my juniors are really excited to maybe do and raise chickens in our ag farm next year and sell the eggs in our farmers market. So being a little more self-sustainable.
That sounds amazing and sounds like fun. I know it's a
Yeah,
lot of work,
it's a lot of work,
but
they're
yeah,
excited. So
that sounds amazing. And I hope you stay in contact with our department. I will ask Mr. Cantu later in the year, maybe next year. Maybe we can do something and have an event and see it, and I don't know, kind of help out or something.
yeah,
It sounds very amazing.
I've told Mr. Ganthu that I'm more than happy to do a collab and maybe work towards, bringing that to STC, also the farm to school program, and maybe even transition it that way. But it would be nice to have for the kids, and definitely work with you all and promote the farm to school programs to colleges. So I'm so excited. I'm totally up for a challenge. Helping to start this has been red tape after red tape, but we keep going and it's working out. So keep trucking.
I bet. I'm glad to hear. I hope many of our viewers students, other faculty get inspired. And thank you so much, Bobby, for joining us.
Definitely.
This
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. This concludes our speaker series, and it concludes our speaker series for this semester. Hopefully, during fall, you can join us for our speaker series events. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can see all of our previous speaker series. And thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.